Today on the Roxom Report, Bitcoin continued its slide this weekend, but seems to be regaining steam. We'll tell you what could be coming next. The US CFTC is launching a crypto sprint to fast-track new rules for digital assets. And former UK Chancellor George Osborne says the UK has been left behind in the crypto world. All that and much more. Plus, we have Susie Violet Ward, CEO of Bitcoin Policy UK, with us today on the show. That's all coming up right now on the Roxom Report. Welcome to today's episode of the Roxom Report. It is Monday, the 4th of August, 2025. I'm your host, Ione Butler. Right now, Bitcoin is trading at $114,503. And today, we're joined by Susie Violet Ward from Bitcoin Policy UK. Susie, how are you today?
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Really great to be back.
It's always good to chat with you. We like to kick off having a little discussion about things. And one of the stories that I saw cropping around today was about the FCA allowing retail investors to invest in ETNs, Bitcoin ETNs. I was thinking this too, and when I just ran it by you before, I remember this news kind of floating around a couple of months ago, but it seems to be back and forth. And I think what's happened is there was talk that they were going to allow retail investors to do this, but this is sort of confirmation that it is going to happen starting in October. And so, yeah, when I saw that, I was curious to get your thoughts. Is this some kind of progress for Bitcoin in terms of UK regulation? What do you think?
It's definitely progress, but the ETN is not the same as an ETF. ETF, in my opinion, would be big news, but this is just a stepping stone in the right direction. So the FCA are going to lift a 4-year ban on retail access to the exchange-traded notes, and this means that everyday investors will be able to buy Bitcoin-linked ETNs via a regular stock exchange. But they're not covered by the Financial Service Compensation Scheme. And the structure is different to an ETF. An ETF is a spot. Bitcoin ETF is backed directly by Bitcoin, but this is a debt instrument. So I'm not really sure why they think why an ETN is better than an ETF. But yes, it's still progress and heading in the right direction. I mean, they're going to have to unban ETFs at some point.
Yeah. And what did you make of that they're not going to back it with the financial compensation scheme? I saw that as I know that the UK government is anxious about embracing Bitcoin. And so to me, it seemed like that's their way of saying, all right, you can do it, but we're not backing it. Does that seem fair to you, or what do you make of that?
It's really difficult. I'm not really sure what I think of that, because I think that we need to take generally more responsibility over everything anyway, and having everything backed by some, compensation scheme then leads to them making decisions that may not be in the best interest of people, because they're thinking about it in terms of what is the risk for us, especially if they don't understand exactly what they're backing. So, for example, what we've said ad nauseum, that Bitcoin is the best performing asset of the decade. It's not risk on, it's risk off. But they seem to think that stocks and shares, just because they're on the stock market, are a lot safer. But they're not. And if you look at, say, something like the S&P 500, it's just backed by 7 or 8 top companies, but the rest of it is just a nonsense. Or underperforming, not a nonsense. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. They're not really good bets. So it's not consistent, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Okay, shall we dive into the news? Let's do it. Okay, we could cut to a commercial break, but I like to keep rolling on. This is time for our top Bitcoin price story making waves today. It is top of the blog.
Okay.
Bitcoin's recent dip may not be a sign of weakness, but a setup for the next big move. Bitcoin has slipped about 7.5% from its all-time high earlier last month, but analysts say this pullback could be forming what they call a perfect bottom. Bitcoin is now holding steady near its 50-day exponential moving average, a technical level that's acted as reliable support in the past. In June, a similar dip triggered a 25% rally. Some believe that same pattern may now be repeating. One analyst, Bitbull, says a drop to the 110 to 112,000 range could mark the low before another leg higher. Charts show Bitcoin is completing a classic breakout pattern known as an inverted head and shoulders. If the pattern holds, it points to a possible rally towards $148,000. Woo! Just shy of the wildly expected 150,000 target for later this year. And there's more fuel behind the move. On-chain data shows that a long-time Bitcoin holder sold off $9.6 billion worth of Bitcoin in July. These so-called whale sales have historically been followed by cool-down periods and then strong breakouts. Analysts say all signs suggest we're in another one of those cooling phases now, with a breakout possibly just around the corner. Susie, this sounds exciting, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is what Bitcoin does, isn't it? Up, down,
Yeah.
What will it do? What won't it do? I think everything's looking bullish. I think everything is pointing towards some serious bullish trends. We've got macro headwinds with the Fed interest rate policy, US inflation slightly ticking up. As the M2 money supply goes up, I think there's like a 12-week lag, 8 to 12-week lag behind that and the Bitcoin price. And we know that that's going up and to the right. So, ETF inflows, I mean, they've slowed a little bit, record inflows in Q2, but the demand is still there. And I think it's just cooling off a little bit over summer. And then you've got the seasonal weakness. August and September are weak months generally for Bitcoin. They call it the summer lull. So I don't know, all to be expected, I think. And setting up for a big run, I think. This is nothing to worry about. And what are we, 114,000? How can that be a dip? It's
I know,
incredible.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. What do you make of this inverted head and shoulders pattern? Some of the names of these patterns are quite funny. Yeah, you're not really like an analyst in that sense, where you're looking at the charts that much, right?
Yeah, so there are some things that will make sense, and it's all to do with probabilities, really. That when you see this, there's a 60% chance of this happening, but it's not an exact science. And I don't know. Sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical. I'd rather look at other things, like, for example, that the M2 money supply is probably the most reliable metric that we have to see where the Bitcoin price is going to have, because it does track it very, very closely, just with a very slight lag.
Can you just break down what the M2 money supply is in simple terms?
So that's the amount
and how that kind of correlates?
In very, very simple terms, it's the amount of money that's in the system.
And this is globally or in a specific country?
M2, I think this is more, I'm talking more about the US M2 money supply.
Got it.
And it usually is like a direct, direct measure of exactly what the money supply is. So it's linked.
So the more,
it's linked to money printing, and like you saw it pop up during the COVID stimulus. It just goes up, and historically the Bitcoin price rises as the M2 and the money supply expands.
Got it. And so we're seeing an increase in that. So it's likely that we'll see an increase in the price of Bitcoin.
Yes.
What was that? Anton, our producer from up above, has got the graph to show us. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that, yeah.
It doesn't have it, it hasn't got it compared to the Bitcoin price. That would be cool to see a chart with both of them on top of each other. But
yes, that is a good chart to find.
Yeah. Is that possible, Anton, to see one that's got like a comparison of both? It'd be great to see the trend there. And 150,000, would that get you excited, or are you just like, no, I'm okay. It's just doing what it does? I'm excited.
About a Bitcoin price getting to 150K. It's inevitable, isn't it? I've just.
It is inevitable, but I'm excited about it being like, I don't know, in the next week or so. I'm gonna call it into existence because we were joking on the show that we had never seen an all-time high happen since we started the show. And then there was a run of all-time highs that followed. So I would like to thank us for that. So let's do it again to 150.
You're putting it into the
okay,
universe.
Here we have the I am. Yep. You're welcome, Bitcoiners. N2 supplied Bitcoin. Oh yeah, look at that. It like tracks pretty closely.
It does. It's really and it's obviously M2's by country. So when I'm thinking M2, I'm thinking of US really.
I see.
But I think there's like an 8 to 12 week lag, and out of all the indicators, this is the one that I would look at as being the most solid.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Another good chart to look at to give us some kind of idea. Yeah, it is pretty close.
Yeah, it's reported by the Federal Reserve and it's one of the key indicators for US monetary policy.
Fantastic. We were talking about the M2 supply and of like a different country. Maybe it was one of the European countries. Was it Germany or something? I think I was talking to you about it, but yeah, I'm lost. Very good. Okay. Anton, let me know what we're doing with breaks because I can just keep talking to Susie all day. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with the Global Gist.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back. Next up, we're taking a look into the Bitcoin headlines from around the world. It is time for the Global Gist. The US Commodity Futures Trading Commission is launching what it's calling a crypto sprint, aimed at fast-tracking new rules for digital assets. The move follows a sweeping executive order from President Trump and a detailed set of recommendations from the White House's Working Group on Digital Assets. Acting CFTC Chair Caroline Pham says the agency will work closely with the Securities and Exchange Commission as part of this effort. The SEC already kicked things off last week, with its own initiative called Project Crypto. Together, the two agencies will work to build a clear rulebook for the crypto industry. That includes providing legal guidance, setting up a sandbox for innovation, and developing ways to regulate crypto spot markets and blockchain-based derivatives. The CFTC has been tasked with 18 action items from the White House. 2 are specific to the agency, focused on defining digital assets as commodities and updating rules to allow for decentralized finance. The rest involve coordination with other regulators, including the SEC and the Treasury. Chair Pham says the CFTC has already started by scrapping outdated guidance and wrapping up consultations on 24/7 trading. President Trump has also nominated crypto policy expert Brian Quintes to lead the agency. A Senate confirmation hearing is still pending, but could move forward soon. Susie, what do you think of these developments over in the US of A?
They're smashing it out the park. They know that this is the future. They know that they've got to take it seriously, and they're building the right frameworks to try and make it happen. I'd like to see a little bit more of a distinguishment between crypto and Bitcoin, obviously. So I don't really like the term crypto sprint. I think that it is a little bit misleading. If they just refer to it as Bitcoin and crypto, I think I'd be a lot happier. So, for example, earlier in the week, the White House released their digital asset report. And this showed a clear policy shift, and it showed that Bitcoin was a very distinct asset from the rest of the crypto market. And it even quoted parts of the white paper and referred to Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer cash operating without intermediaries. So they're really starting to get it and get the difference. And it also mentioned Bitcoin strategic reserve. So they're ticking every single box. But if we could just get this split between Bitcoin and crypto right, I think it would really help clarify things for people.
I wonder if it's just the reporting where, people are calling, well, I guess they were calling it, the departments themselves are calling it a crypto sprint. Or if, do you know what I mean? Whether it's like actually coming out of these organizations calling it that, or if that's just kind of what it is being reported at. Because it does seem like it's a journalistic thing where it kind of crypto gets lumped into everything, which is a bit confusing. But that is promising that you can see that there is a distinction and an understanding that Bitcoin is separate from that. I hadn't read the report, but I didn't think there was much mentioned about the strategic reserve. I'm not sure if you had a chance to dig into it, but did it just mention that they are still interested in having a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but there was not really any plans? There wasn't sort of more said about it. Is that kind of right?
So they did mention it, which is good. But the details, you're absolutely right, were very, very limited. But they just said that they were considering it as a strategic asset, and they did separate it out from the other digital assets. So, that to me is good enough at this stage.
Positive, yeah. Just play a game with me here. So you are working in government, either the US or the UK, pick whichever you like, and you get to set a Bitcoin strategy. What are some of the things that you would do to get that working?
Well, I think they need to start by researching it and understanding it. Even our FCA doesn't, our Financial Conduct Authority doesn't understand it. I don't think we could move forward until they actually understand the asset that they're dealing with. It was only recently that our Economic Secretary Emma Reynolds said it's not for us, despite the fact that the US were talking about having a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I mean, how can you say it's not for us if you don't actually understand what it is? So my first recommendation was just do some research.
So let's just I'm being like a child here playing a game. They've already done the research. You're in charge of this department. They're listening to everything you're saying. Are there certain, this is the first thing that we need to tackle to, we're implementing Bitcoin into the UK economy, that we're allowing people to use it? Are there sort of key points of definitely the education is one, and that's already happened. But we're basically what would be the advice that you give the US right now in their development of this, and therefore what would you be doing in the UK if you were in that position to do it, just to kind of help find the solutions, the better solutions?
So the FCA have to distinguish between Bitcoin and crypto, because at the moment everything is under a restrict mass market investment, which means that everything's got the same risk profile. Until that changes, we're not going to be in a good situation. Once they understand that Bitcoin is unique, that it's a decentralized protocol, it's completely different to crypto, which are VC companies, then we can move forward. But until that is established, I don't really think that we have much hope. And then we'll just look at integrating Bitcoin into the UK economy. We'd look at things like making it easier for people to buy it, making sure that they can hold it in their pensions, making sure that mining is big in the UK. Because at the moment we have about 0.1 to 0.23% of the hash rate. The US have about 40% of the hash rate. When the UK wake up, that's going to become a lot more relevant to them. And we need to integrate it into our renewables. We have a lot of wind in this country, a lot of wind renewable energy. We're spending £1 billion on curtailment. That is growing as we build out these wind farms, although the wind farms really aren't the best solution, but we have to work with what we've got. The thing is if we build in the demand response to these systems, we could reduce our energy bills. So there's other amazing ways of using waste heat when it comes to mining, but they need to understand what it is. So, for example, we import a lot of soft fruit. We import avocados. We import tomatoes. We could grow all of those things ourselves just by mining Bitcoin and using the waste heat from to warm greenhouses, and then we save the CO2 on importing these things. We're more sustainable, we're more sovereign. There are a multitude of ways that we can integrate it into our economies and make just bring the innovation here and use it in the way that other countries are using it. This isn't hypothetical. It's actually being done elsewhere. So even in Holland, they grow tulips with the wasted heat of Bitcoin, and peppers. That's just next door to us. In Texas, they are using it very much to stabilize the grid. There are so many fantastic opportunities that we have, and it's a global, borderless, peer-to-peer currency. It will change the world. And the sooner that the UK wake up and realize that, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you make some fantastic points there. It's and I think the thing that really stuck out is you've got all of these examples now. There's all these case studies. It's not it really isn't an excuse to sort of pretend that you don't know when there's so much out there being done that you can say, right, well, this would work for us. But yeah, thank you for those great suggestions. Okay, moving on to our next story. It's kind of like a bit of a broken record with these ones, but the UK is falling behind in the global race to lead on crypto, according to former Chancellor George Osborne. In a new op-ed for the Financial Times, Osborne says Britain's current approach is too slow and vague, especially compared to countries like the US, Singapore, and the EU. He warns that unless the government and the Bank of England act quickly, the UK could become irrelevant in the future of digital finance. Osborne directly challenged Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey. He criticised their crypto efforts as weak and said Britain has no presence in the fast-growing stablecoin market. That market, worth $250 billion, is now almost entirely dominated by dollar-pegged tokens. The Bank of England currently requires pound-based stablecoins to be fully backed by central bank deposits that don't earn interest. Osborne says that makes them commercially unworkable. He also argued that other countries are setting clearer rules and embracing innovation, while the UK is stuck in cautious policy and political delays. Osborne served as Chancellor from 2010 to 2016 and now advises Coinbase. He says crypto today is like London's Big Bang reforms in the 1980s, and that bold political action is needed now. His message to the government: catch up or get left behind. Susie, I'm curious to get your take on this, because I'm in agreement with a lot of the things that he said. And then I read that he is an advisor for Coinbase, which kind of was like, well, you're going to have to say that because you're kind of working for Coinbase. But I do agree that, of course, the country is being left behind. I thought that it was interesting that he talked about the Big Bang reforms in the 1980s, where they deregulated a lot of the financial industry, and that allowed innovation, and it allowed the UK to become the kind of financial hub that it is. So that was actually interesting, something I didn't know about. So yeah, what was your takeaway from George Osborne's thoughts?
Exactly the same as you. When I saw Coinbase, like, my heart sank a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, so there's a reason why you're coming out and saying this. It's not just because you've just suddenly noticed that there's a problem. There's obviously an incentive there, isn't there? As there always is. But, in the piece, he makes a point that he used one of the first Bitcoin ATMs 11 years ago, We had this opportunity then to investigate it. I mean, it goes back to the problem that we've got with the FCA. People know that the FCA are incompetent, and they just don't know why. And when I've spoken to people who have worked at the FCA, they said that they were researching this back when George Osborne was using the ATM 11 years ago. They were asked to research this new form of money. But unfortunately, every single time somebody researched it, understood what it was, they left. That's because they were just like, well, why would I sit here in this kind of broken system when there's this whole new world of innovation out there? Once the penny dropped, they were like, I'm out. So the turnover of staff at the SCA has been really, really high. And as a result, we haven't had the right people forming the right legislation. But, he names the symptoms really, really well. He says that retail investors have been blocked from ETFs. We discussed that earlier on. He said that banks have routinely been freezing lawful transactions. Yes, they have. And, it says that startups have been suffocated. I know that we hear about companies all the time that are leaving the UK because of these stifling innovations. We're not encouraging businesses, and we live in a nomad economy. It's not hard to leave. You just pick up your business and you go elsewhere. If you make it hard for people, they will go. And policymakers are hiding behind the regulators. So we've got quangos upon quangos that nobody's being held accountable. He's calling them out, but yeah, there is a little part of me that just thinks, oh, Coinbase. But we've missed the first wave, he says. Yes, that's true. And now we're at risk of missing the second. Oh, God, if only we could catch up. Like, I really want to believe that that's possible. But when you hear the noises that are coming out of Westminster and Whitehall, it doesn't fill you with much hope.
Yeah. It was interesting that you were saying about, because I was like thinking about the timeline. He was Chancellor from 2010 to 2016. That was plenty of Bitcoin time. And so you mentioned that he used a Bitcoin ATM, but did he talk about adopting any type of Bitcoin policy then? Because it's all very well and good to say, the UK is falling behind, but then that was your job. Yeah. During the time Bitcoin was coming about. So if anything, you're kind of part of this problem. Was there any kind of acceptance of his part to play in this?
Of course not. Politicians are really good at talking, but they don't necessarily back it up. And so when you hear a lot of these politicians talking, they all know what the problems are. Apparently they can see what they are, but do they have the backbone to actually stand up? They're more concerned with re-election. They've got other things. They've got to pacify party donors. He had an opportunity. He used one of the first ATMs. Where was his curiosity? I mean, look, the article is welcomed. I wrote about it this morning on Twitter. I've given my synopsis on it. I can see the good that's in it. He clearly understands the problem. But like you say, where was he when he was actually Chancellor? And now it's a little bit suspect that he's getting on board now. He's an advisor to Coinbase.
Yeah, that does make me question his integrity and why we're hearing this. Talk to me about the analysis that you did on Twitter. Have you any good comments that have come back, Anton? Can we maybe pull that up?
It's just really talking about the article. I'll just go through. So Street Cyber said Osborne calls for courage and a direct challenge to policymakers hiding behind regulators. Yeah, he's just quoting. Just a lot of people quoting my article. Someone mentions Ethereum. I haven't quite understood the point, but okay, here we go. And then somebody says, Britain and Europe are regulating rather than innovating. I mean, that's exactly what they say. That's what we do. We regulate, we don't innovate. But yeah, we're stuck in defensive policy making.
Yep. So yeah, anyone wanting to dive into that at Decentra Suze, there she is there. Excellent. All right, let's check out the next story. Sorry, Anton, just as you got that all pulled up. Or should we take a quick commercial break? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back to the Global Gist. Now, in France, crypto is suddenly becoming a political issue, especially for the far right. The Rassemblement National Party, led by Marine Le Pen, has made a major U-turn on digital assets. After years of opposing cryptocurrencies, the party is now embracing Bitcoin and even proposing plans to mine it using nuclear power. Le Pen recently visited the Flamanville nuclear plant, where she endorsed using surplus electricity to power Bitcoin mining rigs. Her plan would turn unused energy into what she called a sovereign crypto asset. Just a few years ago, she warned that Bitcoin served global financial elites. But now she says crypto can strengthen France's independence and economy. This shift mirrors a broader trend around the world. In the US, Donald Trump won re-election with a strong pro-crypto platform. In countries like South Korea, Japan, and El Salvador, digital assets have played a central role in political campaigns and economic planning. Meanwhile, France's government has taken a more cautious path. It supports strong European rules under the MiCA framework, focused on transparency, licensing, and consumer protection. But it also encourages innovation, backing blockchain startups and pilot projects for Web3. Now, with crypto gaining momentum in elections worldwide, France's opposition is betting that digital assets could help reshape the political map at home too. Susie, a couple of things that I wanted to get your take on there. Using surplus energy, surplus nuclear energy to mine Bitcoin. Seems like a smart move. You're sort of often talking about, doing that, using surplus energy for mining. And would that be something you'd recommend that they do in France?
Absolutely. And the fact that they're doing it from nuclear, even better. I mean, we were talking about the curtailment costs that we have with wind in the UK. Wind isn't a very efficient renewable energy. It's something that has, like with solar, it's been heavily subsidized by the government, but would it work without the subsidies? Probably not. And we know that there's a direct correlation between the amount of energy that a country uses and how prosperous they are. So our grid and our energy suppliers are talking about how we can reduce our energy consumption. That's not the question. That shouldn't be the discussion. We need to find out how we can just have an abundance of energy. It shouldn't be about reduction, because when you think about how AI is on the on the horizon, it's here, but it's going to grow exponentially. We're going to need a lot of energy, and we need energy dense solutions, and those solutions are not going to come from solar and wind. They're going to come from nuclear. And so the fact that they want to do it from nuclear, for me, I just think that's fantastic. And wasted, it's an absolute no-brainer. But once again, I mean, they're using the terms Bitcoin and crypto interchangeably, and they really do need to start talking about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the proof of work protocol. And as we've discussed before, there's a huge difference between Bitcoin and crypto.
What do you think of leaders changing their tune? Potentially, the critic in me is thinking because they know that it could potentially win them elections, and they can generate more favor by being sort of pro cryptocurrency / Bitcoin. What do you think of that kind of? Are you seeing that trend happening? Do you think politicians are kind of jumping on that bandwagon?
I mean, the right kind of U-turn, yeah, we should have them. I mean, I change my mind all the time. I think it's really helpful to change your mind when you're in receipt of new information. I mean, okay, this might be because they want to get re-elected, and that's often why they make really poor decisions, and they have this short-termism. So ideally, they should be doing it because they're in receipt of new information, not just because they want to manipulate their electorate. However, this is a sensible move, and it will serve them well. So, what their reasons are, I don't know. But yeah, I can understand why most people would be skeptical. But I don't think it's wrong to change your mind. I think that that's actually a really important part of the journey.
I'd agree too. I guess I'm thinking back to the US elections, and there was a lot of talk about Kamala Harris was slated for changing her mind on policies. You said this, and now you're saying this. And so I know that, it can definitely be used against people, but I think I have to agree with you. If you're presented with new information, it's a reasonable thing to change your mind. And if you're so kind of narrow-minded, despite receiving new information, I think that's a bigger problem than somebody who changes. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Well, they need to change their mind, basically. If they don't, then we're just going to be stuck in this endless loop, which isn't good for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. There needs to be new thinking for sure. Okay. Oh, I'm curious to get your take on this one. Here we go. Michael Saylor says owning 7% of the world's Bitcoin supply isn't too much for a company with a clear strategy. The executive chairman of Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, spoke to CNBC on Friday, doubling down on the firm's aggressive Bitcoin plan. He called Bitcoin digital capital and explained that Strategy's business model is built around two things: buying Bitcoin and issuing structured financial products backed by it. Right now, the company holds more than 628,000 Bitcoin. That's about 3% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. Saylor said that number could grow, and even if it hits 7%, still wouldn't be excessive for a company leading the way in digital asset treasury strategy. He expects Bitcoin to deliver a 30% annual return over the next 2 decades, well above traditional investments. Saylor believes more public companies will follow. He said that once clear regulations are in place, even firms like Apple and Microsoft could start holding Bitcoin instead of cash or gold. Strategy's financials appear to back him up. The company just posted its best quarterly profit ever, with revenue topping 114 million in Q2. Wasn't it in the billions? It also launched a record-breaking we'll double check this, a $2.5 billion Bitcoin linked security offering, the largest IPO of the year. As Saylor put it, the future is orange. And for now, Strategy is betting big on it. Susie, what do you think? He's saying that 7% of the world's Bitcoin supply isn't too much. That's fine. It's fine. Is that fine?
I understand we live in a free market and you can't tell people what to do, but this doesn't give me a warm, fuzzy feeling at all, especially because you've got a company that talks about having a clear strategy called Strategy that has no product. All it does is buy Bitcoin. It used to have a product. It used to be a software company. I mean, that's less than 1% of what it does now. And I used to use that product when I had my old fiat mining job, when I used to be a systems accountant, and we would use MicroStrategy as a reporting tool. But we called it, and I may have mentioned this before, MicroTragedy, because it was so rubbish. And I think this is reflective of this company now. This company started off as a piece of software. It wasn't a particularly great piece of software. And now its only strategy is just to buy as much Bitcoin as possible using these debt instruments. And I don't know, I get it. I understand the money glitch and I know what he's doing, but it doesn't make me feel good at all. And I just really wish he would stop buying.
Yeah, if you were, and we also just double checked, I'm not sure where the numbers came from there, but I think they reported like $10 billion in profit in Q2, which is an insane amount of money. Not sure what the millions were there. If you could have like a sit down and chat with Michael Saylor, what kind of things would you want to know or discuss? Because I know in the Bitcoin world, he's a lot of people's heroes, and I'm curious how you would feel and what you would want to say and talk about.
I don't think it would be a useful conversation. Anything that I've got to ask him or say, he's obviously clearly very set. I mean, he thinks everything that he's doing is fine. He thinks it's fine to just keep adding Bitcoin onto a company that has no product. It is just literally a Bitcoin treasury. That's it. I would ask him why. Why is he doing this? Like, why does he feel the need to? I mean, he's going to have more money than probably any country in the future. It's a lot. It's too much. And I think if he believes in Bitcoin and he gets Bitcoin in the way that he used to say that he got Bitcoin in the early days, I mean, he's very slowly changed his tune over the years. I say, why are you doing it? And why are you doing it like this? Why? That would be my question.
I'm curious as to like what the end goal is. Is it just to keep buying at all costs indefinitely?
Yes.
Is there, and also can he see how that could be problematic if he is just buying and hoarding it for one company, how it can kind of make things a little bit difficult for other people who want to use Bitcoin as a currency and things like that. I'm curious what the end goal is.
Well, to be the first trillionaire. He just wants to be the richest man on the world. I think it's mostly driven by ego and money and power. And I think that he can say something and mean something else. So I don't think you'll ever really get to the bottom of that.
That's true. But yeah, just to say that 7% is fine. 7% is huge. That's a huge percent. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, up next, we are diving into a segment that's all about disruption, innovation, and pushing back against centralized control. It's Buck the System. Buying a home in Dubai with cryptocurrency is no longer just a bold idea. It's a legal, practical reality. Thanks to clear rules from the UAE's Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, or VARA, major developers like Damac and Amar are now accepting Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins for property sales. The process is carefully regulated. Buyers work with licensed agents and convert their crypto into dirhams, the UAE's currency, through approved providers. This step ensures compliance with anti-money laundering laws and full transparency. The Dubai Land Department still requires property deeds and titles to be recorded in dirhams, even if payment starts in crypto. But with licensed brokers and platforms like Crypto.com handling the conversion, it's a smooth process. Stablecoins such as USDT and USDC are popular for their price stability, especially in luxury home deals. And with the right paperwork and verification, international buyers can easily navigate the system. Dubai's government has gone even further, supporting tokenized real estate and digital platforms for fractional ownership. That means some buyers are now purchasing property shares on the blockchain, making high-end real estate more accessible. With fast payments, lower fees, and full legal backing, Dubai is shaping up to be one of the world's most advanced crypto property markets, where blockchain meets beachfront. Ooh. Susie, what do you think? Is this a exciting new development, in your opinion?
It's an inevitable development. I mean, if you're going to, Bitcoin's easily verifiable, easily transferable. It makes sense, and Dubai's become one of the most crypto-friendly jurisdictions globally. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing, and allow property purchasing using Bitcoin. It's inevitable. I keep saying that, but these things really are. It's only the UK that doesn't seem to get the inevitability of where this is going. So it has practical utility, and there's a geographical advantage to this, and because they have the regulatory clarity, they can do these things. You said it in your monologue. It's clear, they know. So Bitcoin is moving off the charts and into the real world. There's places like Dubai that are making this happen, and Singapore and the US are also doing really well when it comes to things like this. And I think it will help when it comes to better, or less KYC when it comes potentially when it comes to verifying on chain, because obviously it's an open source ledger and you can see that what you're getting is actually what you're getting, and it's really easy to transfer it. And I think that Bitcoin can thrive within these legal regulatory frameworks without compromising its core properties. I mean, I don't particularly like the fact that it's institutionalized to the degree that it is. And off the back of talking about what Saylor is planning as well, I mean, it is becoming a little bit too centralized, but Bitcoin is anti-fragile and it has to be a part of the current financial system. And this is just part of the test.
What do you think about, because the UAE is very, not just specifically Bitcoin, they're very crypto friendly. And it's interesting. I think it's interesting to see that they're so open. They seem to be so open about all sorts of cryptocurrencies. I don't know that we've seen any that backfiring in any way yet. I know that you're kind of Bitcoin through and through. Do you find it interesting seeing how things are unfolding there? Do you think it's like a ticking time bomb? Continuing to allow these other coins to operate in the space. What do you think?
So if they just convert it, if any other coin, if they convert it straight into fiat money, fine, it's just a transaction and it's just using the payment rails. But I think they'll get their fingers burnt. And if you look at Ethereum against Bitcoin, it just goes down. So, it probably has its place, but I don't think that it will. I don't think a lot of these cryptos will survive, and this is still early days for these countries. They're still finding their feet. Just because they're ahead of everybody else doesn't mean that they're not still early. We are still really, really early. So I think they'll probably get to a point where they understand that these other cryptos maybe aren't as solid as they think they are, that the Bitcoin is the pristine asset, and slowly they'll migrate over to what's good, and the free market will decide.
Yeah. We've covered some stories over the past few weeks, somewhat similar to this. This is about sort of buying property with cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, but we've also looked at there's a couple of other developments, which is being able to use the Bitcoin that you have to allow you to get a traditional mortgage, because oftentimes people can have a lot of money a lot of Bitcoin, but that's not being used into any of their affordability calculators for a mortgage. So that's one element of it. And then there's also the taking loans, borrowing against your Bitcoin for a mortgage. What do you think of those types of vehicles and developments? Would you ever be interested in using any of those services? Do you think that that's a good thing to be happening?
I think they have their place, and it is just part of integrating with the financial system, because Bitcoin is so easy to transfer and it is a pristine asset and it's really easy to verify. It makes perfect sense that you would use it as collateral. I'm not really a fan of the fact that it is just potentially handing your keys over to a third party. That isn't really what Bitcoin is about for me. I understand that it means different things to different people, but for me, Bitcoin is a freedom money. And I think this takes away the freedom money aspect, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't serve a purpose. And I also am pro-choice. So if somebody wants to do that, providing they understand the risks, then of course they should. Is it for me? Probably not.
So in an ideal world, you would just want to use Bitcoin to buy the things that you want to buy?
I would like it to be more in the hands of people and less in the hands of institutions.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Well, Anton, do you have another story for us? We could cut. Yeah, we're going to cut to a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We have time for a very quick story that we have just found. And that is about 4 countries that let you buy citizenship or a golden visa with crypto. And they include Vanuatu, can't say that, which is one of the fastest countries to offer citizenship. I don't know what. Dominica and St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Portugal offers EU residency through crypto-linked investment funds, and El Salvador offers direct citizenship through a $1 million Bitcoin or USDT investment with no fiat needed. Susie, what do you think about this? First of all, buying citizenships, and then with crypto.
Work out where they can go because it's such a dire situation. And that's always the question, isn't it? Where do you go? Where can I get a visa? I know a lot of people that have actually gone to Paraguay, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think that was relatively cheap. I mean, El Salvador's an obvious one with their freedom visa. I wouldn't want to give $1 million of my Bitcoin away
for El Salvador. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's nowhere on this list that I would think, oh, do you know what? It's worth it. But I understand why they're doing it. And actually, it's a very, very smart move because a lot of people are looking to leave the UK. In fact, I did actually tweet about this last week with there's a mass exodus of people actually leaving. And I think the top countries are Dubai and the US and Portugal.
That wouldn't surprise me. Well, that takes us to 2:00, actually. Thank you, as always, Susie, for joining us. Where can people follow you for more?
You can just look me up on X, just at DecentraSuze, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Susie Violet Ward. Just probably X is the best place.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to my guest, Susie. Next up, we're handing over to Nolan with The Great Awakening. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we'll see you then. Bye.